Eric here, and welcome to my epic steam adventure. For the first episode in this series, we're going to visit the Everett Railroad, which is in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. Hollidaysburg is only a few short miles from Altoona, a famous railroad town from the Pennsylvania Railroad days. And while we're this close, we're going to go check out something in Altoona that is pretty special. So if you're a fan of the Pennsylvania Railroad, you're not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Eric. For my 50th birthday, my wife is sending me on a 2-week adventure to see as many steam locomotives as I can. But I'm not taking this trip alone. I'll be joined by my son Carson and our good friend Chris. Now, Chris and I have both worked in the tourist railroad industry for many years. So along the way, we're going to catch up with some old friends and meet some new ones. We're going to get some special behind-the-scenes access into things that most people don't normally see, and also offer insight into the complicated machinery of steam locomotives and the world of tourist railroading. So join us on this epic adventure where each day brings a new discovery. We're beginning our adventure in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a city with roots in the Industrial Revolution that also served as a crossroads for early methods of transportation. Unfortunately, we're not spending a lot of time here sightseeing. But while Carson and I waited for Chris to catch up with us, we did manage to take a ride on one of Pittsburgh's 2 restored inclines and check out the classic Pittsburgh and Lake Erie train station, now used as a restaurant and hotel. Our first stop is Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, just a few miles south of the famous railroad town of Altoona. Here we will find the Everett Railroad. The Everett Road is a 23-mile short line which interchanges with the Norfolk Southern branch in Hollidaysburg, then heads south over 2 divisions to serve several freight customers. Alan Maples, the line's owner, holds an interest in tourist passenger trains and steam locomotives. So along with his general manager, Jason Lamb, they built a small tourist operation from the ground up. Number 11 is a 260 Mogul type, built in 1920 by the Cook Works of the American Locomotive Company in Paterson, New Jersey, for export to Cuba. The purchase fell through and it never left U.S. soil, being sold 3 years later to the Narragansett Pier Railroad in Piercedale, Rhode Island. After changing hands multiple times, Everett purchased it in 2006 and did an extensive rebuild on the little engine, finishing it in 2015. Now it pulls short passenger trains on select weekends throughout the year. We've arrived just in time for the 12 o'clock departure. There's going to be 3 train trips today. A 1-hour steam trip at noon, a longer 90-minute ice cream train at 1:30, and a diesel-powered beer tasting train at 5:30. We wanted to chase one steam trip and ride the other. Since the second trip has ice cream and the first trip is already about to depart, we've elected to chase the first and ride the second. The cute little Hollidaysburg depot was constructed brand new by the railroad, specifically for the tourist operations. are no turning facilities on the Everett Railroad, so when the train gets to the end of its run, the engine has to run around the train to the other side and pull the train back to Hollidaysburg tender first. So we've just arrived back in Hollidaysburg, and while the engine is running around the train to get ready for its 1:30 departure, we went inside the ticket counter to get tickets. Unfortunately for us, we found out that they're overbooked for the 1:30 trip. I guess everybody really loves ice cream.
The train was overbooked, so we can't get on the train. Kind of sad about that.
Well, we were just going to chase again, but Zach Hall, who's the steam shop foreman and an old friend of ours, invited us to ride up in the cab on this next trip. So Carson and I are going to ride the cab, and Chris is going to chase. And then we get to the end of the line, we're going to trade places. So this train goes to a place called Roaring Springs, which is a cute little depot in a cute little town up on the hill south of Hollidaysburg. And the passengers, it looks like the passengers are getting their ice cream inside the depot. So they're going to get off at the depot and go inside and get their ice cream. And then there's a nice little duck pond across the street, and they get to hang out and relax by the duck pond and enjoy their ice cream. Meanwhile, we've got to back the train down a mile to a runaround siding so we can run the engine around to get it prepped for the trip back to Hollidaysburg.
Butcher's line, clear for 10.
Well, I mentioned at the start of this that the Everett Railroad is mostly a freight hauling railroad with just passenger business on the side, just for tourists. So this paper mill here used to be one of their major freight customers. It shut down apparently here a couple years ago and it's being scrapped. So the Everett Railroad has the contract in order to haul off all the scrap material by rail, but once that's all done, then then they've lost that customer. So I guess they're going to have to sell a few more train tickets in order to make ends meet.
Clear another 6.
Alright, so the train's pulling out of Roaring Springs headed back to Hollidaysburg. Chris and I have traded places, so Carson and I are chasing the train now, and Chris is getting to ride in the cab. So we all get a chance to have a little cab ride. Now that we've arrived back at Hollidaysburg, there's some time between this train and the following beer train, which doesn't leave until 5:30. And since we didn't actually get to ride the train, Zach's going to show us around inside the train cars and let us take a look at their meticulously restored train cars that they use for their excursion set. And my gosh, these are very nice, very well done.
Bessemer Combine built to New York Central specs.
What's over there?
They're match strikers and attendant call buttons, all original.
Oh, yeah? No, that's not a urinal. That's a sink. Toilet. Very simple. Easily spacious. Look at that. I like this color.
It's beautiful. With the blue seats and all the highlights around it.
Yeah. Behind us is a former locomotive.
So you would totally phase this car out, not just refurbish it?
Yeah. They're shorter, the roof line doesn't match. The idea is we want a matching train.
Yeah.
These roads.
So when you say up at the shop, are we talking the shop that's right here or the shop down at that end?
The shop up in Duncansville.
That's where your cars are?
Just a mile from here, yeah.
So according to Zach, this red car here at the end of the train, and also there's one just like it that's parked over next to the depot, these are ex-Lackawanna commuter cars, which means that they would have been used in multiple unit service. They would have had electric pantographs on top and been self-propelled to be running commuter service. But the railroad has decided that these cars are not much in their future, and they're going to be retired when they get some other cars restored. They don't match their style and their body style and roof profile and stuff like that. So they're going to be retired here shortly. So we're actually waiting for Jason Lamb to show up. Jason is the general manager at the Everett Railroad. And Jason, Zach, Chris, and I all worked together years ago at the Grand Canyon. Jason's been working all day at the company offices in Duncanville, which is only about a mile away, but he's scheduled to be the engineer on the beer train later tonight, which is diesel powered. So we're waiting for him to show up so that we can get a quick visit and a quick picture. Meanwhile, Zach's letting us take the steam engine out on a joyride. So Zach turns out to be a man of many hats. In addition to his work with the Everett Railroad and his full-time job, he also does contract work with a company called FMW Solutions, which is one of the leading up-and-coming contractors in the tourist railroad industry. So as part of that, he's working on a project up in Altoona at the Railroaders Memorial Museum, which is only a few miles up the road. So we're in Altoona now. We're going to check it out.
Where we are standing here was the original Altoona Works shop, so the first place that Pennsy built engines before they built Giuliana.
Okay.
Everything in here, over where all the medical, what mainline medical is over there, where that building is where the test plant was at. Over here where all the medical buildings are.
Oh, okay.
So everything here, like this is a new fabrication, all the buildings and everything here were standing into the 70s. Pennsy wanted to give this to the state to be the museum that's now in Strasburg. City of Altoona didn't want it. So the test plant and everything could have been saved.
So that's all gone now.
Yeah. Everything, this whole medical thing over here is where all that stuff was. So this whole valley, each side of the tracks here for about 2 miles was all Pennsylvania Railroad buildings and shops.
So this building is built as new construction.
Yeah.
So what was it built for? Just for projects like this?
Yeah, to be a roundhouse with a turntable outside.
So this is the 1361, a Pennsylvania K4 Pacific. Now the K4s were built in Pennsylvania's own Juniata shops in Altoona. They built about 425 of these locomotives, and they were the prime power, steam power that they used for passenger trains. They were built between 1914 and 1928. There's only 2 of these remaining. The 1361 was preserved by sitting up at Horseshoe Curve on display, which is just outside of Altoona, for many years. And then it was restored to operation, ran a couple years, and had some problems, and they took it to Steamtown, which is in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And there was a group in Scranton that worked on a locomotive for, I guess, like 20 years or something like that, but didn't get very far with it and ran into some problems. So here recently, it's been reacquired by the Railroaders Museum of Altoona. They've got this brand new shop facility they have the locomotive stored in, and they've totally disassembled it. FMW Solutions has been contracted to do all the work on this locomotive in order to return it to service, but they're finding all kinds of problems with the locomotive, both in how it was originally built by the Pennsylvania back in the World War I, World War II era, and also in some of the restoration work that was done post the original Pennsylvania ownership. So in preservation years, some of the restoration work that was done was not quite up to proper standards. So they're finding a lot of problems and finding solutions in order to fix them. And Zach's going to show us all about some of the stuff that they've done here on this locomotive and the things that they're trying to accomplish to hopefully get this locomotive up and running back on the main line here in the next, they're hoping, the next 5 years or so. Fundraising has been pretty significant on this locomotive. It's pretty popular and pretty well known among Pennsy fans. And a lot of people are willing to donate money in order to see this locomotive back out on the main line.
Burner.
Yeah.
Everything Pennsylvania Railroad, the bell pair design, that injector setup, is all European influence.
Really?
Yeah. So whoever one of the master mechanics was for the Pennsy went over to the UK and studied what like Nigel Risley was doing, and that's where you see a lot of this stuff from.
Okay.
So the back head was made new as part of the previous rebuild attempt. Basically everything from where the chalk line is here above the door up on the flat is going to be a flush patch. That's 1/2 inch. We're going to make it out of 5/8. Redo all of that, and then
So this right here, this is new.
that is new at the work they were doing in Steamtown.
Okay. But up.
Yeah, above the horizontal chalk line there.
The whole back head is
Yeah.
new. Okay.
But above the horizontal chalk line there, just on the flat tangent, so inside of the radius, everything is going to be redone. Make it out of 5/8 plate, because you can do with the code, you can have an 1/8 inch thickness difference for the plate.
Okay.
And then because the T-iron setup, which is still in here, I think it's on a pallet on the other side. The T-iron setup for the back head braces doesn't come anywhere near a factor of 4. The throat sheet bolt spacing, 6.5 by 4. MAWP of 143.5 PSI at a safety factor of 4. This thing runs at 205. So everything that is chalked out within this line here has to be replaced or weld up the holes to adjust the bolt pattern. That's 1 inch plate.
But this is original Pennsy,
Yes.
standard railroad of the world.
So we're still discussing because nothing in this is flat. You put a straight edge on that, there's high-low, everything's wavy. So all this stuff was stamped out with dies that were probably pretty well worn out. So the inner throat sheet, because the inner throat sheet with the bell pair design, the inner throat sheet and the half of the bottom of the combustion chamber, that piece went down to Chattanooga early last week, along with the back or the door sheet to be modified. So they're going to do we have this all laid out for how it needs to be for the bolt pattern. We just haven't determined yet is it less work to knock all these sleeves out, weld up the holes,
Right.
or replace all this. But some of this needs patch because where the handhole washout plugs are here, all the handholds are going away to get actual Huron plugs in it.
Is that how they were originally set up with handholds?
Yeah.
What's a handhole plug?
You ever seen a traction engine?
Not really.
Okay. A handhole plug is a piece of flat plate that has a rubber gasket on it.
You were telling me about this.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what they had on here?
Yep. One thing that's nice about them is they're big.
Yeah.
So you can get, you can have all sorts of crap in there, you'll wash it out quite easily.
That's a belly. So, and there's one there too. That's the belly washout.
Chris, we just had the line because Pennsy. What the fuck? Pennsy.
Goodness.
Why the
There's
hell would
another one
Pennsy?
there. Wow. To see I mean, not too many people get to see a locomotive stripped down to this level with this amount of engineering going into the refurbishment and the redesign. I mean, that's what makes this project so amazing.
And what we, the amount of money that went into, there was $15,000 of steel in the fab shop to do all the hole drilling and the press brake work and everything. That was another $20-something thousand. So when we first laid that thing up there, like everything started to line up, other than where we knew we had to do the hot work. Thank God. If this is wrong, like this is a $50,000 mistake. Yeah.
Now, the smoke box was done back in the 80s?
The smoke box was done at Steamtown, so the smoke, what you're looking at here is all new.
Okay, it's all new, but not by you.
Yes.
Okay, and then the tube sheet?
Tube sheet, bottom parts of it are new. And then if you look inside here, everywhere there's a rivet that's painted red is something that they put in previously that does not meet. They are structural, like bridge rivets. They're not pressure vessel rivets, so the carbon content of them is wrong. Where the rivets are removed, there were rivets in there.
And that you guys took out?
We took them out because they are the wrong material. They don't meet the spec to be a pressure vessel rivet.
Yeah. How cool is this? To be able to see inside a valve cage. And then the ports, the piston ports are up there. Yeah, people don't get to see this. And this is this inside admission, right?
Yeah.
Standard inside admission. Yep. So the drivers are going to need some work as well. The crank pins are condemned and need to be replaced. Also, the tires, while having good profile, are thin enough to be near condemning limits. Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum in Chattanooga, Tennessee has a great wheel shop, which will be utilized to do the work. Once the tires and crank pins are replaced, the wheels will also need to be quartered. Quartering the wheels means making sure that the crank pins on the left side and right side are exactly 90 degrees from each other. This is necessary to prevent binding of the side rods.
So the solution ultimately, more than likely, is take the pin out.
Yeah.
Quarter the hole where the hole is supposed to be. More than likely welding up part of the hole to have so you don't make a huge hole. And then putting in a new pin. Once you put a new pin in, as long as the hole is quartered correctly, you'll have your right thickness offset there.
Carson, go stand next to that.
It's United Vanadium.
Just show how tall that is.
It's got the reinforcing in between the
not that
spokes.
Yeah.
This is like a poor man's
Not
hull
saying very much.
or box spoke, basically. Now I'm talking about this reinforcing rib right here.
Oh, gotcha.
That runs down the spokes. This was made by United States Vanadium, and it's supposed to be a stronger wheel center, but also lighter so that you could get more counterweight in. Now, why they decided that they needed even more on here remains to be seen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because this is added. Right.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah. So a lot of the railroads, these came in like the late 30s. So like almost everybody went with the box spoke type, which was lighter and stronger. But this came in. I want to say that this was even after that.
So the tender obviously has received lots of body work and is in pretty good shape, but there's one thing really interesting about the tender that you don't see on a lot of steam locomotives in the United States, and that's the water scoop, which was used in order to scoop water into the tender from track pans on the fly without having to stop the train and take on water. Okay, so this was a tail car on the 1969, what'd you say, Golden Spike?
Golden Spike, Centennial Limited, whatever it was called. Idea is, Wick Mormon, who is chairman of the board of directors here, owns the Sandy Creek, which is...
That's a New York Central car?
Yeah. One of the 21st century tail cars.
Yes.
So he thinks it would be cool to have a 21st century tail car and the Broadway Limited tail car being run together.
I think it'd be cool to have them side by side in the museum. That would look pretty cool. Yeah, a little 040. Look at how much oh my gosh, look at how much space there is in the frame.
Missing any parts?
I don't...
Looks like everything's... Oh, no, there's no air brakes.
Well, it might not have been equipped with air brakes. No, it has brakes.
Probably steam jam.
Yeah, steam jam brakes. Oh my gosh! I mean, there's your Stevenson valve linkage. You can see it quite.
Is that literally everything? That's all that's in this engine?
Yeah.
So
Very simple. Very simple. Yep.
Actually, I think it's kind of nice, easy to work on.
Oh yeah. No,
understandably. If you need to access a bearing or something, you could probably just crawl right underneath it and take everything apart.
Yeah, you could get to everything really easy, and it doesn't weigh a lot, so you could probably lift it pretty easy.
I mean, for it being so small.
The rods you could probably manhandle off. Yeah. 2 guys and lift off the rods. So after we were all done at Altoona, we headed back to Duncansville for the night and stayed at a place called the Y Motor Lodge. Now, there was nothing particularly special about this old hotel except for its name. And in fact, it was located near the Y that the Norfolk Southern Branch Line used in order to turn their freight trains around. So at the conclusion of each episode, I went to count how many steam locomotives we saw. So let's count how many we saw today. I really hope you enjoyed this visit to the Everett Railroad and the in-depth look at K4 Pacific number 1361, because there's a lot more to come on this trip. So tomorrow we're going to drive about an hour up the road to one of the most epic locations for railway preservation, at least in the eastern part of the United States. So you're not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned.